Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Ace, and you're watching actually another edition of a Roundtable. I'm sorry, guys, I'm a little under the weather tonight, but you know what? I'll make it through. It'll be okay. So let me go ahead and welcome in the individuals that we have with us tonight for Roundtable. Number one, welcome in none other than Mr. Crispy Bacon. How's it going tonight, Mr. Crispy Bacon?
Going good. Glad to be back on a round table, and it'll be a good show.
All right, and then of course we have none other than Mr. Isaiah Leong. So how's it going tonight, Isaiah?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad to be on the first roundtable episode in like 6 months. It's been like a long time since we did the show, so it's great to have the show back. It's great to be back on the show, and I can't wait. You know, we got a lot of great topics tonight, so grab your popcorn and settle in, and it's gonna be and enjoy the show because it's gonna be a really great show.
Oh, absolutely. We've been waiting for it for a while. And then, of course, let's welcome in that one dude. He goes by Mr. John Alcorn. How's it going tonight?
Hey, no Tuesday night like crispy bacon. No, it's all good. No, glad to be here talking sports and to kind of see if hopefully Florida Man is finally retired.
Well, Florida Man, I can't tell you that, Florida Man is retired yet. Don't know that yet. But anyway, all right. So welcome to another edition of Roundtable tonight. We have some, great topics for you. So number one, we're going to start out with the easiest topic of all. And so, John, with this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start out with you on this first question. And the first question is going to be, why don't you go ahead and just tell me how you got into podcasting in the first place?
To be honest, years ago, is that I wanted to work with kids and for a career, and then I'm like, no. So I just started podcasting in my closet in my apartment, started recording in my closet again, recorded in my car, and thankfully last year, around August, I met the people from MI6, met y'all at another network, and it's been good. A lot of things are happening.
All right, and then of course Isaiah. So when it comes to Isaiah, what age and how exactly did you start podcasting?
Well, I think I might be like the youngest on the panel, surprisingly. I'm currently 23 years of age, and well, I've always wanted to go into the sports media field. What happened was, back when I was like a kid, I would always in the mornings, surprisingly always just I would always just sit on the couch and watch First Take with Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless at that time. And it was just one of my favorite shows. And I love to see those guys just going back and forth, debating about sports and talking about sports, and Skip Bayless giving his crazy take, like the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl every single year, and all the other stuff, like Tim Tebow's going to win MVP as well. And then, I always just sat there and was like, if these guys could do it, maybe I could do it one day, because I'm very passionate about sports. And then, it really started, I felt like, in the beginning of 2020, like in March, when everything shut down because of COVID and the pandemic happened. And, there was nothing to do. So one day, me and my guy, Stephen Wang, shout out to him, we just decided that, hey, let's just, with me, Steven, Trevor, and Ryan, and I believe Furman was on the program, why don't we just like once a week sit at a table on Zoom at that time, and let's just talk sports. And, from there, it became like a common thing where every week we would do a couple of shows. And then from there, it became like a weekly thing where every week we would have like 5 or 6 shows a week. And that's kind of where it started from. And that's kind of also where MI6 has started from. And, I've been lucky enough to interview like a lot of great guests, like some Hawaii football players, some Mike Yam, who I grew up watching, host ESPN Sports Center. Also, Dan O'Dowd, the former GM of the Rockies. Like, I've been fortunate enough to interview a lot of great guests and be a part of some great shows. So, yeah, that's, I would say, like, my inspiration for getting into this field really came from just watching First Take every single day. And that's also why I still watch First Take, believe it or not, even though John says it's not a great show. I
It's
still
not.
watch it to this very day, every single day.
So, the interesting thing about it is I'll bring up how, Isaiah, you had talked about, you wanted to get into podcasting because you were passionate about sports. But the interesting thing when it comes to podcasting, though, is, podcasting just isn't generally just about sports. You can podcast in pretty much anything. Now, do you need to have knowledge in that in that certain category? Absolutely, you do. And if sports is your thing, then hey, more power to you. If that's what you wanted to podcast in, it's just like John, more power to you. You wanted to podcast in sports, and you know what? That's great. But so before I get to myself, I'll get to Mr. Crispy Bacon. So, Chris, how did you get into podcasting?
Yeah, kind of like both you and Isaiah and John. Wanted to get in the field, and that podcasting was good. Watch a couple shows, on TV, and kind of practiced with it before I started a podcast, and kind of, done some testing on that, and getting better, but still need a lot of work, and just trying it out.
All right. You know what? I like that. So mine was kind of interesting because, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big Colin Cowherd fan. I've always been
Same here.
a fan of his. I love watching The Herd. Okay, The Herd is a great show. I love it. And so I watched Colin Cowherd doing it for actually quite some time. I was watching him do it, and I'm like, man, you know what? That would be really, really fun. I think I would really, really enjoy doing that. And then one day, I knew that my brother kind of did his own thing to where it's like called J-Mac on his own or whatever. And so, John, you probably know where I'm going with this because, you were in the group with this other network and everything. And my brother was part of that. And so he sent me this link and said, hey, check this out. So he sent me this link, and I'm like watching this link, and I hear him say, hey, we're looking for people to join our network and everything else. And I was like, I'm in. Well, at the time I was kidding because I'd never done it in my life. And I was like, dude, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. I've never done this. It's going to definitely be an interesting route to take. So then all of a sudden there I was podcasting, and then we started this, and then I started meeting a great group of guys again from, MI6, and John just happened to be there with MI6 too. So that's kind of how I got into podcasting. But, I was kind of like you guys. When I first got into podcasting, I thought, sports was going to be the thing. I looked at it and I'm like, you know what? Sports has to be that thing. But then as I started doing it more, I'm like, you know what? Sports is not just a thing. I wanted more. Once I started podcasting about sports, I'm like, no, there's so much more out there. There's movies, there's music, there's just all around topics that I thought, you could really reach people and have people really listen to it if you have the right topics and the right conversations. And so, of course, welcome in Trevor. Trevor's here. So, Trevor, welcome in. How's it going?
Pretty good. And I heard you guys start talking about topics. What type of topics do we got tonight?
Yeah, we have some great topics, but we're just talking about our first one, which our first one, we're just talking about how we got into podcasting. And, so we're kind of telling our little stories about it. So, Trevor, I'm going to send this one over to you and, explain to me, how'd you get into podcasting, and really, what did you really want to podcast about?
I think when I really started getting into podcasting, I think growing up I listened to a few. There was like a Pokemon one, there was a Star Wars one that I got into listening. So like things that you used to, grow up as a child, enjoyed listening to, saying, "Oh, there's this type of podcast out there." You start listening to it. Then when you start getting to like when I got more towards like middle school, late middle school towards early high school, you start seeing the YouTuber phase, and we like going into it saying, well, I could do that. I could create videos, like stuff like that. They do basic software editing. I could learn something like that. But then they invested it and they became like, mini celebrities, according to like some of us. I was like saying, all right, let's do it. But I put it on a back burner. Like I did like YouTube gaming for like freshman year of high school just to try it out. It just didn't really work out because I just hated editing, because it just takes way too long to edit a video. We all can agree to that. But I think I started going into more of the podcast route because it was like less labor intensive for editing. But it kind of started because of COVID, because we all couldn't really see each other. We had phone conversations. And it was kind of like a no-brainer. We're sitting hours at a time talking on the phone when we could just convert into a podcast, let other people know what we're talking about. And you kind of build a little family, a little community, and just kind of started snowballing. And then I started branching out to other podcasts. I did one for my student organization for the Buckeye Space Launch Initiative, where I just talked about space-related themes and just kind of, broaden my horizon, showing that I can do more things just besides sports. Then we had No BS in that phase. We had the Power 5 in there. Just trying to make it a little bit different compared to your traditional sports podcast, where we just look at current events articles, because anyone can look at current events article, give their 2 cents, and it's just that. But if you make it a nice spin, something engaging, like anything that we do kind of gets that. Like look at Roundtable, for example. It's different from what our sports shows are, but it gets the fans to know who we are, to get that more of a bonding connection. And that's where I kind of, got into my podcast journey, just finding that connection, relate to people, and just build a cohesive network, I would say.
Well, yeah, which is kind of what I was talking about, because Isaiah had talked about the sports side of things, but I said, for me, podcasting was way more. It was getting to figure out what your viewers want, what they want to listen to. And so I'm completely in agreement with you on that, Trevor. Shows like this to me are a lot of fun, because your viewers out there, they kind of get to know you. They'll sit here and be like, oh, I didn't know this about this person. It's kind of cool to figure out how they got started and everything else. But John, you said you wanted to add something.
Yeah, like Chris was saying about top of improving on podcasting. I'm telling you, Chris, I know it may seem sometimes that sometimes we don't make any progress, but you'll look back in a couple of years. Like if you look at, I deleted mine, but I had podcast episodes from July of 2019. I would pay y'all not to listen to it. It was so bad. I was stuttering. You would think I was like a 13-year-old trying to ask out his crush. I mean, like I was sounded like I was sweating bullets. The audio and everything was terrible. But the point, Chris, is you'll make progress. You'll be just fine. It takes a lot of time, but I promise you it'll be worth it one day.
Well, did I tell you about my first time going on a podcast?
Was it
with
Patrick Star?
It was like the roughest. I'll tell you what, and it wasn't because I didn't quite know. I knew the topics. That wasn't the problem. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. I should say I knew the sport that we were talking about, but I did not know the topics. And so the only thing I knew was like right before we were going on, I was told, guess what? You're here and you're moderating the show. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, dude, I've never done this before in my life. So like the camera like pops up and I'm just like, welcome. And I was like, what the heck am I supposed to say? So I just threw something off the top of my head. And then after that, I was never actually given a list of topics. So I had no idea what the heck the topics were. And I was just supposed to I'm supposed to introduce all these topics. And I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. How the heck am I supposed to introduce topics if I don't know what they are? So I improvised and I threw so much stuff out there. And then afterwards, the person's like, that really wasn't the topics. I'm like, well, nobody ever gave me topics, so now you see what it gets you when nobody knows the freaking topics.
Well,
You're just kind of
well,
throwing things out there.
well, Ace, you did better in your first time doing it than I did it like a couple months ago when you had me introduce Kicking It with Isaiah and Ace, and I literally butchered the heck out
Oh
of it.
my
I mean, the
God.
first time I don't know if you
That's why
remember
we
this,
don't
but
let you host anymore, Isaiah.
yeah, and that's what
We even
that's
tried
why
it
you
on
guys
No
don't let
BS
me
in the
host. Because
beginning.
the first time I literally said like you handed it to me, I said we are watching Kicking It, and then I was like, oh crap, it's not it's you guys are watching Kicking It with Isaiah and Ace, and then if I said and I was like, we are watching it again, and I was like, oh gosh, not again. And then the third time I come on and say something like, you guys are watching Chilling It with Isaiah and Ace, and I completely messed up the show name. So your first time was already better than what I had done 3 or 5 months into podcasting.
Dude, it takes a while, so don't put pressure on yourself. Believe me.
No, it does. Like it's not something. And let me tell you, for somebody to come on and moderate a show, it's definitely not for everybody. Like you have to know the topics, you have to know how to keep your audience engaged, and you have to know how to keep the show flowing. I mean, if you come up here and you give somebody a topic, and that person talks about it, and then they stop. And as the moderator, you're sitting here and you're just staring at the screen, not saying anything. That's a lot of dead air, man, and it just kills a lot of it. And so you really have to know the transitions. You really have to know the topics well, and you kind of have to know what you're talking about. However, there is ways that if you're a moderator and you don't know about that particular sport, that is the easiest time to get away with not knowing about the sport is when you're moderating a show, because you can turn it over to everybody else and be like, hey, so what do you think? And then you go, okay, we've spent enough time on this topic, so you can ask me about my opinion later. And then you jump to somebody else, and you're like, we're going to jump onto something else, especially if you don't know what you're talking about. So it's like the easiest way to yeah.
Just like when Trevor and I did a baseball podcast.
Oh yeah, when Isaiah's internet was bad, boy, we had to do an entire show with guests on baseball. We somehow got through it.
It was 2 minutes before the show. I'm about to go to bed, and we did a last minute baseball podcast.
That's not good. That's not good. But it's kind of like, Trevor, did you hear when we were talking and I'll tell you, it was partially my fault, but I thought that Isaiah would research it just a little bit before he came on because he knew the topics on Sports Minute. And so it was a hockey question.
Oh, no.
And so he's like, yeah, I know this. And so he's like, yeah, my team, they played the Vancouver Blues. And we're like, what? Like the Vancouver Blues. We're like, what the heck? And then he starts throwing out names to where we're like, dude, that person's retired, or that person's no longer with your Sharks anymore. So it was kind of one of those funny episodes where you're like, man, if you don't know the topic, really don't do it, which actually, jumps us into our next topic, which is so Trevor, I'll start out with you on this one. What sports do you actually watch, and who are your favorite teams?
So actually, sports that I watch, I would say college football is probably my number one. Obviously, just graduating, but living for the college football drama, trying to figure out who's the number one team in the nation. But besides that, figuring out the number 2 and number 3 and number 4 slot, and just trying to figure out how do you equivalent teams that played head to head, those who outplayed other teams, and just fitting in that scenario. So I would say college football is number 1. Number 2 would probably be the NFL, so it would be the Los Angeles Chargers, is the team I keep a close eye on now. I enjoy, the Chargers app and listen to them on the radio. I just can't stand the TV announcers anymore, so I just like going on the radio and just listening it because those announcers on the radio are very energetic and really make the game more intriguing to listen to versus a monotone TV announcer. The only TV announcer that I love to death is Gus Johnson. He does a fantastic job on it.
Yeah.
Without him, I feel like sports are going to be very different. So the day that he retires is going to be a sad day. I'm going to be like, I remember him calling all those great games, but he got to the end of his career, but he's not there yet. He's still doing a fantastic job on Fox, which makes me watch some of the big noon games that happen in the Big 12 and the Big 10, of course. The third sport I probably would watch, it's really hard for the third sport. It depends on the season. So you have the Olympics, the World Cup would be thrown in there. And that's really pretty much it. Every now and then for like the Olympics, I watch curling just to see how people, perform, figure skating, gymnastics, all those sports. But I would say racing will probably be in the fourth spot besides those special, yearly events or every so often events. Those are kind of be my top four.
All right. So when you talk about racing, you're talking about like NASCAR?
Wow, stumbling. Just a mixture between F1 racing, so Formula One, and NASCAR, but it's more
Sweet.
Formula One because I love the road courses and I used to hate road courses growing up in racing and video games for them, but I kind of enjoy the fast-paced action of the F1 cars.
Cool. I am a NASCAR fan too, so it's good to know that somebody else is also a racing fan. But keep in mind though too, if you ever do like an Olympic show or anything like that, I'm not your guy. So you never want to reach out and be like, "Hey man, you want to join my podcast about?" No, bro, I'm definitely not your guy. You never want to ask me anything about whether I should technically do any type of Olympic thing. I just shouldn't do it because it's just not me. But
you could get a nice ping pong in there, Adam.
a nice ping pong, right? But I will tell you, I do know the difference, though. I do know the difference in different, in the events that they do. I can tell you the difference. Like I know what curling is.
Like what?
I know what
era?
javelin is. I know what long jump and stuff is like that. Oh, and pole vaulting, which when it comes to pole vaulting, I don't know if you remember this, but this is when Isaiah was like, "Oh, is this curling?" And he sends a picture out of somebody pole vaulting and goes, "Isn't this curling?" And
Wait, what? Isaiah?
Yes, Isaiah did send a picture like that in the group chat.
he
Isaiah,
did. He sent.
turn in your badge and gun.
He sent it out and said, isn't this curling?" And we're like, "Bro, no." And we're like, "Definitely not. That's not curling, bro."
Yeah, I remember that. I remember sending that in the group chat and getting chewed out by Cal and saying "Sir, this is what curling is." And he sent the whole picture of it. And I felt really embarrassed that day because I thought for the 20 years that I've been watching the Olympics that I thought that was for sure
For 20 years?
gonna be
Seriously?
curling.
I'm worried if you said that was for 20
So-
years. You thought
so
curling
you have
was
been-
javelin. No,
So
not
you have been
pole vault.
watching, that's what scares me is that you've been watching the Olympics for 20 years, yet you think that pole vaulting is curling.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And they happen on different Olympics.
I'm
You got
glad we got
winter
it
and
cleared
summer.
out. I'm really glad that we got it cleared out.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm glad you got it figured out. And so,
Not me. Don't put us in this. It's not a marriage.
Figured out. I mean, not cleared out.
so there's somebody new here, but all right. So when it comes to it, anyways, welcome in, Trey. Trey, how's it going tonight, my man?
Oh, I just got done doing a show. I figure I'll hop on for a little bit.
All right. Well,
All right,
Trey,
yeah.
you came on at the right time because we're talking about our favorite sports and our favorite teams that we talk about. So before I get to Isaiah and John, Trey, I'm gonna go to you. So what? Let everybody know kind of what sports you like to watch and who your favorite teams are.
Oh man, every sport. If it's on, I'm watching. No, I'm just kidding. Except for hockey, I can't really until playoffs. Playoff hockey's badass, but other than that, I can't get into hockey in regular season. Man, I love watching basketball. I just love basketball. football was my best sport playing. I was great at football, but basketball it's more of a team game to me a little bit. Like the ball movement, the passing, the defensive, like the things that you don't see on a nightly basis, and everyone gets involved, and it's a lot quicker. Just it's a team like you're with the team for NBA for 82 games, 41 of those are on the road. I just like to see the team camaraderie, like the Golden State Warriors this year. I just love watching them play, the way they move the ball, the way the San Antonio Spurs used to do it. I just love everything about it, and it's just my love for the game. But I love football as much as almost just as much. But basketball for me is my favorite sport. I love the cover. I love watching, and I could stay up all night watching basketball. What was your other question?
Just we're saying, who's your favorite team?
Oh, well, I have for each sport that I watch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, football's Dallas. The only Dallas Cowboy because my grandma used to watch me a little bit growing up, and she always had these teams on. The Cowboys, they're my love. I watched all three of their championships in the '90s, and now I haven't seen a championship since. So now I kind of feel like the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns are going through because it's been 25 years since we've been to a championship game, any kind of championship game. So I'm holding on hope, but. My favorite basketball team used to be the Lakers until LeBron James joined that team. I can't stand that guy. I can never stand that guy. And he joined the team, I was done. But more basketball, I'm not more of a player guy. Like I love Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. I love the way they play ball. I love how it's a team game. I love how Steph Curry gets the other. He's not about himself. He's always about his teammates and stuff like that, getting others involved. I mean, for God's sake, Klay Thompson beat his three-point record in a single game. And who passed him the ball? Steph Curry. Who was the first one to celebrate with him? Steph Curry. So I'm a Steph Curry guy. I like the Golden State Warriors. Basically, anybody against LeBron James, that's who I root for in the NBA. And then baseball, man, I just love. I'm a Yankee guy. Once again, my grandma, growing up, I don't know how old y'all are, but growing up, we didn't have all these teams on channels. You only got the Fox Saturday game of the week, and then you got the Atlanta Braves on TBS. So I always follow the Braves and the New York Yankees, and so because the Yankees were always on that game of the week.
That's right.
And so the Yankees were always on the TV. So I just fell in love with Derek Jeter and the Yankees back in the '90s and everything like that. So I've always been a Yankee guy. But I also like the Braves when they had Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones, Tom Smoltz, Glavine, all those guys, Maddox. The Braves were a fun team to watch, but it's surprising how they just only won one World Series. But they got it right this year and finally won a World Series. But yeah, I mean, those are my three favorite teams right there. I don't really have a hockey. I root for the Dallas Stars, but I'm actually liking the Las Vegas Knights actually right now a little bit too. So whatever.
Well, we have a few people who are watching. Fred Funny is here, and he's asking some questions. He's talking about, basketball boring and, asking about cricket. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not your guy. I'm sorry if you want to know about cricket. I can't really tell you much about that. I'll be flat out honest. I don't know much about it. But when it comes to it, too, Trey, your buddy Justin is here. And so he said, Fred, this Trey dude, he talks a lot. So
That's a compliment, I think, right?
Are you sure it's not your hater in another account?
I mean, okay, let's. I have my own Friday night show during football season on the radio. I have a Saturday morning show on the radio. I have my own podcast on Tuesday nights I just got done doing, and I do my own podcast on Wednesday night. So yeah, I talk a lot, and I think I know what I'm talking about just a little bit more than you do, Justin.
All right, so yeah, and they were leaving some comments about the Yankees. But anyways, so John, I'm going to turn this over to you. What sports do you watch and what sports teams do you like?
Before I was 8 or 9, I didn't know anything besides the word football. It has a football, you throw it down the field. And so it was 2006. It was, I don't know why. But mom's, hey, why don't you stay up on a school night? And when you're like 7 or 8, staying up past like a certain time for a school night is like, heck yeah, let's do it. And I watched this guy named Vince Young in a Rose Bowl versus the Trojans, not knowing the history of college football or who Pete Carroll or who Jackson or Jamal Charles or Reggie Bush or Matt Lai or any of these guys were. And just seeing that game and seeing that last second touchdown by Vince Young to win the whole thing, to me, that early on, it showed the passion and energy of football. And that's why from there I just continued to watch football and just continue to hopefully
Well, John, you didn't name the one good part about that game. You forgot about that 4th and inches play where the Texas Longhorns defense stepped up. They actually give Vince Young the chance. That was the best play of the game. That's what should
the
have
best play of the game was the game-winning touchdown. But
No,
again,
that
I was
best play of the
7.
game was that 4th and 1 stop. I'm telling you, man.
I was 8,
Yeah, I'm
so
just-
to be honest, I don't remember most of the game. But what I do remember, because it was my first ever football game, and I remember just watching parts and just getting really excited, not knowing like how many points a touchdown was. That's how long ago it was, and just seeing that game and just really, I was getting excited about the game of football and rage quitting on Madden multiple times until EA blocked me when I requested to get a refund on Madden 21. Thank you EA for that, I appreciate it. And just continue to watch the game of football, get frustrated on Madden challenges, Trevor knows, and we just continue to analyze the game of football.
All right. Well, the one thing I will say, John, is I'm glad you brought up that Rose Bowl between Texas and USC, because I'll tell you what, that was a phenomenal freaking Rose Bowl, man. Like that was one of the best Rose Bowls that I've seen like ever. And I'll tell you why, because it was actually an upset, like one of the biggest upsets that you truly see, because when you look at that USC team, they were stacked. I mean, they were so good that you're like, there's no way a Texas team led by Vince Young basically was really the only superstar on that team is going to step up and beat USC. And guess what? They did it. So I was like, wow, I gave him props on that. But Isaiah, I'll turn this over to you now. You know, what sports do you watch and who's your favorite team? And do not say hockey, because I will say that you're completely wrong and false.
Be specific on which league, though, because he has like 30 teams in college.
I know.
So do we have an hour and a half for me to go through all my teams and
No, we do not.
You just exposed yourself. No.
But
That's right.
so, I would honestly say Trey's gone. I would honestly say that like my favorite sport would probably be baseball, because it was football, but then it became baseball once I started working for the A's and being exposed to it like on an 80 games per season, because I work like all the A's home games. So that's probably my favorite sport. My baseball team is probably the A's and the Phillies, because I grew up like you guys all know, I grew up in Hawaii. I was born there. I was raised there, and I grew up watching Shane Victorino on the Phillies. I think Ace, Chris, and you guys all know that. You know how MLB's got like their special Fox package, like every Saturday they got like a select game on Fox, and for people living in Hawaii, it was the Phillies games, because Shane Victorino was playing for the Phillies, and so that's why I grew up as a Phillies fan. And when I started working for the A's, obviously I had to become an A's fan, because I'm not going to root against my employers. So I would say like that Phillies and the A's are my baseball teams. I would say football is my second favorite sport. I just love the game. I love the hard hits and just like I also love the trick plays as well. The Niners are definitely my NFL team. We're not going to talk college football, because if we do, then I'm going to probably spend like 45 minutes listing all my teams. But I do love college football. I love the fast pace of that game. I love, waking up every Saturday trying to root for Alabama to lose and all that stuff. So I do love college football. And I would say the NBA would probably be like my fourth favorite sport, just because right now, or ever since like the Curry, Durant, and Klay Thompson teams, and even with LeBron heading to Miami to form that big three, I mean, you just know like every single year who's gonna win it. Like whoever has like the best big three typically wins it every year. Besides probably last year, but there's just not that much parity in the NBA. You kind of know who's gonna win it once the off season is over.
Absolutely. But you know what? Sports, to me, there's not too many sports that I really say that I don't watch, when it comes to it. I will say, you know, I told you, Trevor, one of the things that I don't really know a whole lot about is Olympics, because that's not really something that I really follow closely, whether it be winter, summer. I just don't know a whole lot about it. But when it comes to like sports teams in general, there's certain sports that I follow pretty closely. MLB is one. Um, I've I've always been a Braves fan ever since I was young. I'm originally from Wisconsin. That's where I lived when I was younger, and everybody knows that the Braves always played on TBS. That was always one of the stations that they always played on. You could always catch one of their games. And so that's kind of where I became a big Braves fan. But my favorite player of all time actually played on with the Braves in the 90s and a lot of the 2000s, and he's still my favorite player to this day, which is Chipper Jones. So I got a lot of my interest in baseball came from Chipper Jones. And then when you look at the NFL side, obviously since I'm from Wisconsin, I'm a big Green Bay Packer fan. I don't think that'll ever really change. However, it comes to the NBA, it's a joke. Everybody knows that. A lot of people know who my favorite team is, and I'll tell you flat out, my favorite team in the NBA sucks. We haven't been good in a very, very long time. We're probably not going to be good for a long time. We're just not. And in the end, I'm a Detroit Pistons fan. We haven't been good since early 2000s, since basically the bad boy era. Now, I know a lot of people can come out and talk about how, the Pistons made the playoffs in the later years of the 2000s when Blake Griffin was there with Andre Drummond. Yeah, so what? We got swept by the freaking Milwaukee Bucks. So congratulations. We still really weren't that good. We made the playoffs with a 41-41 record. I don't really consider that being good. And we actually drastically had gotten worse since then. But so, Trevor, I don't think that you never really had a chance to answer this, or maybe you talked a little bit about racing, but not like too much about it with the Formula One and the NASCAR and everything. But when you watched it, did you technically have a favorite racer? Because to me, growing up, it was senior, and then it went to junior, and then once junior retired, I followed it, but I wouldn't say that I really had a favorite racer at that point. And I still can say I don't think I really have one right now even.
I think when I was looking at it, it was probably like the cars. So I would say like Matt Kenseth, Jeff Burton, David Rudiman was up there. There was I think Martin Truex Jr. was in the mix.
Truex Jr., yeah.
Ken Strader with the M&M's car. I think Ken Strader was probably like the first driver I really liked. And with the M&M's car, I had 3 cars of the M&M's car. I broke
Kyle
one of those
Busch has
models.
that now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you have the Busch brothers rolling through, Bobby Labonte in there. So I know a few racers here and there and stuff like that. So I did follow it for like a good portion of my life. I did go up to one race, which was Pocono Raceway, which was close to my house. So the Tricky Triangle, if you're familiar with that course, I went up there. It was a cold day. It rained, and the kind of race ended in a rain delay. So the first race was a rain delay for me. But I got to see some good racing action, and the world's longest bathroom on a straightaway was there as well. So you could go with that as well.
Well, the interesting thing about it is you can sit here and say how, you like to watch NASCAR and racing and everything else. And people kind of give you crap and be like, how can you watch it and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't think a lot of people understand, it does take talent. It takes skill. I did dirt track racing for several years. I raced a Honda, and it's not easy. It's not easy to go out there and race every single week, because your focus has to be completely out there. It has to be completely out there.
Keep in mind, Adam, these cars are manual shift. So most people in the U.S. probably don't know how to really drive manual. So they're really taking it for granted, where it's like, oh, they're just stepping on the gas and turning left. They actually have to shift gears and actually how to navigate their car. Most of the time you can probably keep it in fourth gear, but at the same time, you're manually shifting throughout these, different race courses that you're going through. So it's not easy. You're very multitasking, and then you have to calculate your fuel, your tire wear. A lot goes into it than what people actually really believe in
It's more
these
mental.
racing.
It's more
It
mental
is.
than physical.
Adam, the next time I come up to Oregon to visit you, we're going dirt track racing, man. You're gonna take me dirt track racing. I've never driven a car in my life. The first time I drive a car, I want it to be when I'm going dirt track racing.
So you
That's
compared a
fun,
vehicle
man.
as a car that requires insurance to a thing that's just a bike, a dirt bike.
Yeah, but the thing is though, is like when it comes down to it, my mind when it came to dirt track racing, it was rough, man. Like it takes a toll out there, man. Like it gets so hot in the suits that you wear and the helmet you wear, and all this focus is there, and people are gunning for you, man. It is not the easiest thing to go out there and do week in and week out. Now, speaking of that, Trevor, how you talked about, people have to go out there and calculate, mileage with fuel and everything else. That's kind of where I was at some point. And I'm not only talking about like fuel, like there's been a couple times where, I'm leading a race with like three laps left, and my car is getting hot. Like it's in the hot zone. And so I'm like, you got 3 laps left. Your car's in the hot zone. You're like, do I take a chance and just be like, screw it? Am I gonna blow a motor here by doing these last 3 laps when it's in the hot zone, or do I just drive off and be like, I'll go in the pit crew and just take the points? But no, I've taken some calculated risks, and a few times they haven't paid off.
Yep, I played NASCAR and some of the video game racing. I learned the hard way versus taking 4 tires versus 2 tires versus how many laps of fuel you have left. Where it's like, can I make it underneath, finish the race, or does it end in caution and I fall short because of the caution lap? So it's like you really got to factor it in, especially those tires, because if you blow a tire, your car is basically almost a wreck at that point, because you're going to lose control and slam into a wall. Depends how you're going to recover from it. But most of the time when you blow a tire, it's not pretty when those wrecks happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. But Chris, we haven't really got to you yet on this. What was your favorite, what's your sports to watch and your favorite teams?
I like watching all of them, and of course, the Dallas teams are my sport, but football is probably my top sport. I wouldn't say it's my second favorite team, but I follow the Bears because I have family in Illinois and they're Bears fans. So I kind of keep track with them, but mainly my sport or my team is Dallas, and sport is football.
What about shuffleboard?
I like playing
curling?
shuffleboard, curling. I'll watch it, when it's on. I like watching the different kind of sports, like in the winter and summer games, but I don't follow it too much.
Mm-hmm. But, well, no, you are a guy who follows, though. You do follow like don't you watch like the indoor football?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I watch the indoor. If it's on, I'll watch Canada. I'll watch the different styles of sports, and what's different and what's similar to what we do here in the U.S. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. It's just one of those things that it's because they had arena football for a while though too, and they cut a lot of that, but indoor football's kind of like that.
It's basically the same. The only difference is they don't have the nets like the arena did.
Yeah, correct.
That's the only difference.
All right, so we kind of covered who we like to watch and stuff like that, but when it comes down to it, our final discussion of the night's gonna be when you look at the sports world. So, Trevor, I'll start with you. When it comes to the sports world, is there like a sports player in general that you're like, oh man, I love to watch him play. He was like one of my favorites and stuff like that. So, Trevor.
Are we saying current or, you know?
You know what? Anytime. It doesn't matter. Anytime.
So I would have to say LaDainian Tomlinson when he was on the Chargers kind of inspired me to become a running back. So I went to a football training camp. After I won an award, I ended up starting my running back, campaign from there on forward. So at the age of like 7, I was a running back, went all the way up to like high school, was a running back from start to finish. Wasn't a true starter, but it was just like saying I kind of lived up to be like my running back of my childhood dreams. So it's like winning that football award at that football camp kind of was like my Heisman moment. And, from there on, just getting that opportunity being a running back and just almost kind of living that fantasy, just trying to mimic my, childhood hero at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you've ever played like any sports like football or anything, when you're out there, and you're wanting to play like flag football when you were younger or whatever, and you're playing like quarterback, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna be like, like Brett Favre, or I'm gonna be like Dan Marino or whatever. You're like, yeah, man, I'm gonna be out there dropping dimes and everything else. If you're playing baseball, for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta be Chipper Jones. I gotta learn how to bat, switch, right, left, or whatever. But Isaiah, how about you?
Well, can we do coaches or does it have to be a player?
Whatever, man. It doesn't matter, coach, player, it doesn't matter.
All right. So for me, I'm probably gonna say Kirby Smart of Georgia because I mean when you watch this guy on the sideline, he's like a football coach that you would want to play for sure, and you would want to run through a brick wall for him because this guy is so fiery. He's so passionate. I mean, when you look at him on the sideline, he's like jumping up and down. I think one time when I saw him on the sideline, he was like doing a split mid-air, trying to give hand signals to his guys for defense and stuff like that. So, I mean, I would definitely love to one day play for him because, I mean, like I said, this guy's so passionate, so fiery. The pre-game and post-game speeches that he gives are just amazing. And it just seems like he's just one of those guys that you're like, yeah, man, I definitely want to play for. But if I had to pick a player, it would probably be Shane Victorino from the former Phillies guy because, I mean, that's kind of who I grew up watching every Saturdays when they played Phillies games on TV, and I would see him, run the bases, drop bunts down, move runners over, and also play excellent defense out there in center field. And he was kind of the guy that really really helped me with my philosophy for how I want baseball to be played, and that is kind of like the small ball NL game that is kind of being eliminated right now from the game of baseball.
All right, so the next one we'll go to is John.
I'll pick 3 positions, but it'll be super quick. One would have to be Peyton Manning, because after I watched the 06 Rose Bowl, I watched the NFL's version of that, and it was Peyton Manning, the Colts versus the Bears. Running back wise, I would have to say Adrian Peterson, because I think, even you could talk about LT, like 6 running backs total in NFL history won the award by themselves, so that's something to imagine. But something, I don't know what it was about Adrian Peterson, just loved him as a player. And number 3 is Larry Fitzgerald. I remember my first huge Super Bowl party, like a youth group, and we were having some type of game or whatever we were doing, and just seeing this guy, like, man, this guy is phenomenal. I have no idea who he is, and I just been able to continue to watch football.
Yeah, definitely. So, John, the one thing that I definitely give you credit for on that is when people talk about, one of the all-time greats, as the receiver side, a lot of people don't mention Larry Fitzgerald. And I'll tell you what, people don't talk about that guy enough, but that dude is like one of the great receivers of all time. Like when you think about some of the best hands in football, Larry Fitzgerald is definitely up there. I don't know how many people actually knew that there's actually a stat with Larry Fitzgerald that says Larry Fitzgerald has more completed passes in his career than he does drop passes in his entire career. And he's a receiver.
And he's 17 different quarterbacks. I'll name one before I let you go back. John Skelton.
Yeah,
know
but
that-
yeah, he's only had
17.
technically, when you think about it though, he's technically only had like one Hall of Fame quarterback in his whole entire career, and that was Kurt Warner.
Yep. And Kurt Warner wasn't even drafted there. He was that's the story.
Mhm.
But yeah, he got traded to there.
Absolutely. So, Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I would have to say, going to that Super Bowl with the Bears and Colts, probably Devin Hester. Him making that punt return to start the game, that was pretty incredible.
Boo! You went with a Bears player. Boo!
And that Peyton
Sorry.
Manning, but-
Sorry, just had to throw
Yeah,
it there.
Could have said Jay Cutler. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, that would have been that would have
We
been.
didn't say
horrible.
Matt Nagy.
Getting
Oh,
Kurt.
no.
Matt Nagy, absolutely.
That's true. I didn't say
I've
Matt
never,
Nagy.
I've never met a Jay Cutler fan.
Well, what's funny is when I was younger, I used to like despise Peyton Manning. I used to be like, I can't stand this guy, but it was because he was so good, it was disgusting, and so that's why I would be like, I can't stand this guy because he was just so freaking good. It drove me nuts. That's why I couldn't do it for so long. I was like, nah, I can't do this. But my favorite players, like I said, it was Chipper Jones was one of them. Football growing up, it was definitely Brett Favre. Was definitely there because I watched him every Sunday. I mean, come on. The guy never missed a start. So obviously you got to watch him play every single Sunday. That was definitely one. And then NBA, even though, I've always been a Pistons fan, Michael Jordan was kind of the guy. When you think about NBA, because how many of you, when you played basketball on the playground, how many of you were like, oh, Michael Jordan, when you were younger and you're trying to take like a three or go up and you're like, I have hang time just like Jordan does. And you go up there with the tongue out and you go up there and you try and slam it. You're like, yep, that's Air Jordan right there. Air
He
Jordan.
said Smush Parker instead.
Maybe because I'm younger and guarantee I didn't grow up with Jordan because I'm familiar with what you're saying, Ace. I only did Kobe because that's what I grew up with, but I know there's a lot of people that did Jordan. But for me, it's just Kobe's. Like if I'm shooting trash can or a shot that I know I'm gonna miss, I just say Kobe. But yes, no, Jordan. Out.
Don't get me wrong. Like I have a lot of respect for Kobe. I do. I have a ton of respect for him. And so Brandon has a comment here, and I'm going to bring this up. And Trevor, you might find this comment funny though, because he says I hated Randall Cunningham when he coached in 2 Super Bowls, and the reason he's saying that,
Or the Lion.
and the reason he's saying that is because I don't know if you heard about this though, Trevor, but we were asking about 2 coaches that had won 2 Super Bowls after Landry, and Isaiah's like, oh, that's Randall Cunningham.
I also said James Franklin was the president of the United States at one point.
He said the
That was
Thanksgiving.
a terrible,
He said the
embarrassing,
first-
humiliating show.
He said the first Thanksgiving lasted 1,700 years.
Oh man, Isaiah.
If you
What
guys
happened,
like
my
that
guy?
comedy, if you guys like that comedy, tune into the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network next Tuesday for the trivia show. I'll be on it for sure.
The Randall Cunningham, man, I just about lost it. I was like, wow, man, 2 Super Bowl as a coach, man, 2 Super Bowl wins as a coach. I was like, all right.
Remember
I
the
have
red-
no words for Isaiah.
Remember
I'm sorry,
Trevor,
ladies and gentlemen. I
the
have
red,
no
the
words
red
for him.
card and the yellow card is in hockey. Remember that?
Oh yes, yes.
Wow.
Yes, that was another one though too. So we were doing a show the other day, and before we call it a night, so we're doing a show the other night, and we're talking about the next up and coming sports and stuff, and we're talking about hockey, and then we're like, oh, it's a penalty box, but Isaiah may not know what a penalty box is. So Isaiah's like, yeah, I get it. It's where you get the red card and the yellow card.
I'm sorry, Isaiah. Please turn in your sports card. I don't think you have the right to talk about certain sports anymore.
Yeah, turn in your badge. You're not gonna get the yellow nose. It's a pig slip. Just we appreciate your business.
All right, so Justin, I've told you multiple times, it's cool. I listen to a lot of your takes, but when you're coming out here and you're posting saying that Wayne Gretzky is overrated, that's a little far out there, man. That's
Isaiah.
Who the hell is Wayne Gretzky?
What?
Oh no, baseball player.
Baseball.
Isaiah, I thought you were a true baseball fan.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky isn't baseball.
Oh yeah, it's not.
Wayne Gretzky's hockey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for jarring my memory. Now I know who it is.
What
What
really?
team
Are you
did he play
serious
for?
right now?
What
played
team
for
did
the
he
LA
play
Kings.
for?
Oh, man, Wayne.
He
Oh
played-
my gosh.
He played
Oh,
for the
my-
Kings and the Houston Oilers, if I'm not mistaken.
Isaiah,
Wait.
Just
You said
wait a
the
minute.
Houston
I get-
Oilers.
Hey,
My
can I
God.
educate Isaiah on
Hold
this?
up.
Oh my
The
God.
Houston Oilers used to be what we now know them as the Tennessee Titans.
number
Now there's-
one, Isaiah. The Oilers in hockey are the Edmonton Oilers. They're not the Houston Oilers. That was NFL.
And that was before
Wait.
that. Now they're called the Tennessee Titans.
I thought that the Edmonton Oilers moved from Houston. I thought that they were the
No.
Houston Oilers.
All right,
They
well-
moved to Edmonton.
All right, your hockey talk is officially like
Can we
banned
just do
now.
God,
comedy
no more
hour?
hockey from you, Isaiah. You
Hey.
have lost it here tonight. Let's make it an official date. December 7th, 2021. Isaiah can no longer talk about hockey. If he
Hey,
talks about
instead of
hockey,
roundtable,
I
just
don't
do
know. He'll be removed from the show.
instead of roundtable, just do comedy hour, and we just ask Isaiah random sports questions
Oh man.
or sports trivia. Actually, I'm sorry.
Whew. That was brutal. That was brutal. It's
What? The Houston Oilers.
it's Big B.
So hey,
Oh God.
you just heard that the Houston Oilers thing.
I feel your pain. I
The
don't know how to
big B.
explain
And
it.
number one, thinking that Wayne Gretzky was a baseball player. I'm like, that's Really? But I really had to throw that out there, Trevor, about the red card and the yellow card because that was just that was freaking hilarious. I was not expecting him to be like, "Oh yeah, a yellow card and red card." That's penalty box. And then if you get a red card, you get ejected in the penalty box. Well,
two different.
well,
sports.
technically, in soccer, if you do get a red card, you are ejected, but
not into the pot.
not into the penalty box. So, but we're at that time now, so we're going to go around the room one more time, kind of get everybody's final thoughts here. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts?
Thank you guys for watching, tuning in. Great show. Coming up here shortly, we have Tuesday Night Mania. So make sure to tune in for that coming up.
All right, and Big B? He's speechless.
Wow. 5 minutes into this, I get on and I hear Edmonton's where Wayne Gretzky played for hockey or Houston Oilers. That's what it was.
Yeah, the Houston Oilers.
I'm with Trevor. I think we need to do a petition where Isaiah can't talk sports on the stage or Oh, whatever. I mean, for the 10 minutes I watched the show and jumped on, man, Isaiah, I tell you. Oh, I think Trevor's right. You need to turn in your sports card.
All right, so Isaiah, any final thoughts for you other than the Houston Oilers or a yellow card and red card in hockey, sir?
Well, my final thoughts is that, it was a great show. Glad to have Roundtable back. I mean, I think this was like the first Roundtable we've done in like 5 or 6 months. So it was great to have the show back. I hope that, the trivia show comes back either next week or the week after, because like I really want to be on it because, I've spent the last 3-4 months studying in preparation for this moment. So I'm definitely
3 or
ready
4 months
for the trivia
That's
show. But
sad.
He's got to mix up teams.
There's one more player. When we were talking about our favorite players, there was one more player I really need to shout out, and that is Nick Mullins, the quarterback of the Niners.
Oh
I mean,
my
this
God.
guy, the Niners hadn't beaten Seattle in 10 years. They hadn't beaten the Raiders in 5 years, and this guy,
Neither does Mike.
undrafted free agent, comes in and beats the Seahawks and the Raiders. He deserves.
Wait, I don't get it. He's
he doesn't
a
do
third stringer
anything.
for the Eagles. What?
I don't care if he doesn't do anything the rest of his career. He deserves a spot in the 49ers Football Hall of Fame.
No.
Well, anyway,
This is why your sports card just like. Well, I won't say that, but we'll get taken away.
I think
There's
your
no
hockey
yellow-
card,
Let's go.
You
If I had a
I think
red card, I'd
You're
wave
fine.
it right now.
I think your hockey
I'll wave a
card has
white
been
flag
officially
for
taken
us.
away there,
I
Isaiah.
surrender.
I think everybody right here has agreed that your hockey card is officially taken away.
And potentially your football card. 'cause
Here,
you
I'm
can
waving
see-
the white flag.
Yeah, it's
Either
officially
the
taken.
Houston Oilers or
um,
another sport.
Trevor, any final thoughts for you?
Well, my final thoughts is great to be back on Roundtable. Our casual. I guess I don't know when we're gonna do these more regularly. Maybe it's a Tuesday night thing. Maybe it's over the weekend. But we'll probably figure something out where it's more on a routinely basis. I know that college football and NFL season kind of threw a wrench into that plan, so we're on more of a hiatus for it. But we're glad to be back here with all of our dying fans and listen to our bad takes, some bad Isaiah comments here and there. But I think our fans love it and all the random wackiness that comes with this show. We gotta love it, and we just can't wait for more in the future.
Absolutely.
And
All right,
who said?
John.
And who said? Wayne Gretzky was overrated. I caught that just when I was coming out.
That was Justin Bossman that said Wayne Gretzky was overrated. But anyways, John.
You know what? Thanks, sir. I'm glad to be back on. Have some good laughs if I ever. Today was a rough day, and I'll be honest. But just even though like we tease Isaiah, it's all good and fun. But with that being said, though, some of the mistakes, even though they're all good and fun, those laughs made my day. So I appreciate you, Isaiah. But remember, next week I got the Christmas special coming out, so make sure y'all check that out.
Yep. So we definitely want to thank all of our viewers for watching. This was our first, roundtable in a while. It's always fun to do roundtable, of course. Trevor, Isaiah, John, Chris, and then of course Big B at the very end. Hopping on at the end. We want to thank you guys. You will see us again for another episode of Roundtable, so you can catch us then for some more great fun. And next time, I will have some games ready. So we'll go back to playing a few more games.
Like the time I won with my picks.
Yes.
Don't remind you about that last game when you convinced somebody to buy your product, Trevor.
Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
so
Oh, yeah,
great.
that's
So-
a product game. I literally said something that I was gonna kill a fish or whatever. Like
Exactly.
Did I try to sell
Okay.
Superman at one
Anyways.
point too?
Yeah, it was. Anyways, we have another show that's going to be starting. So everybody have a great night, and we will catch you later.
All right, take care.